today we are going to be taking a look at how you can build a product data generating agent. This is an agent that allows you to generate different titles, descriptions, and attributes for your product data based on the different types of data that you already have. Very useful in an e-commerce and retail setting. We're going to walk through all of the code, all of the prompting that is required. As always, this will be available online in the links below, so you can take a look at the agent that we've built, along with the code and any of the data that's used as well. Before diving into actually building this product data generator agent, I want to take a look at some of the prompt basics so we're all on the same page about some of the terms I might use and some of the ideas we're going to follow as we go through this. So there's kind of three main pieces to a prompt, and this is going to be the same for an agent. Of course, an agent is usually just some sort of conglomerate of different prompts or some sort of active or live prompt with dynamic data. Kind of have three main ideas here. First is the instructions. This is very straightforward. These are the instructions you actually are trying to complete the task with or guide the agent towards, or anything you're trying to do when you're actually writing a prompt. This is summarize this document, or generate this data, or perform this task, anything that you're trying to get the model to actually do. These are very straightforward. I assume anybody watching this is fairly familiar with this. This is really just a requirement for using any sort of large language model. Goal state output definition, a little bit different. This focuses on trying to get the model to fully understand what is correct for your specific use case. The model has some sort of idea through its fine-tuning and training of what it believes is a correct way to do the task based on the instructions you've provided. But of course, you or a customer or a user has a very different idea of that. One of the best examples I could give is a document summarizer. Let's say you upload a document and you ask it through your instructions, hey, summarize this document. It's going to produce some sort of output. You might like the output, you might not, but that is what the model believes is the best way to complete your task based on the information you have provided in the instructions. What you want to do is help the model better understand what is correct for your use case. And this usually involves adding extra language, adding prompt examples, different things like that, to try to guide the model towards what you actually want it to do and what is correct. This is normally formatting or accuracy or specifics you want to see in the output. In a summarizer, this would look like, summarize this document in 3 paragraphs with this specific information and use titles, right? You're sort of saying, like, for my specific use case, this is what I want it to look like, and this is kind of what I want to see. This can be very important when we look at sort of iterating this agent forward and trying to get the model to hone in on, hey, for my specific product data use case, this is what a good title is, this is what a good description is, etc. The last one is any sort of data or context you provide the model for understanding. So in a data example, this would be the data that's actually required to run your task. In a summarizer, this would be the document. In a product data generator, this is, the product data that you already have, or maybe examples of products that you already have in your store. This is the stuff that's actually required to be able to complete the task. Context, a little bit different. This is going to focus on, maybe some data or maybe some rules or things like that to help the model understand your use case a little bit better. We'll take a look at some examples of what that looks like with context and without, to get a full idea of kind of what that is. Before we move into that example, I do want to take a look at kind of a key idea you will see throughout this sort of agent building or any sort of prompt building process. And that's the idea that, iterations are really the most important part of building prompts. Your first prompt that you build for a use case is probably not going to be perfect. If you have any sort of data variance in your test set, or you have a large use case or anything like that, it's going to be very hard out of the gate to be able to get a high accuracy without understanding sort of how can I iterate this forward to get rid of the bad. So we will go through a lot of iterations on this prompt. This is not something that you're commonly going to see gets correct right out of the gate. And a lot of use cases are like that. This is no different from any other, MLAI use case, where iterating and evaluating and testing are just a huge part of the process. These iterations from a prompt perspective are going to focus heavily on the accuracy and the formatting to make sure we get those aligned with our use case. Very similar to what we just talked about with the goal state output definition. So just wanted to sort of point that out that, if you write a prompt for something like this and it doesn't work right out of the gate for your specific product data or the type of inputs you have or things like that, that this is a part of the equation. Iterating and evaluating is just going to be something you're going to need to do. Dive in a little bit deeper into that context idea. As I mentioned, it's relevant information that we provide to the model to help it really understand completing the task. This is stuff that's maybe like company specific, domain specific, product data specific in this instance. And this is provided in the prompt so that the LLM can sort of be guided towards our specific use case. A nice way to think about this is the same way that humans would think about this. If you asked a random person to, write a product title for a blue dress, they would write it some sort of way, and maybe you like it, maybe you don't. But if you provided them maybe company guidelines or examples or marketing data to help them understand the use case a little bit more, it would look very different. You have sort of guided or swayed them towards what you want this output to look like. And all this context is provided in the prompt in these agents. Another example here of, kind of what this looks like in an OpenAI setting. You can see this is a snippet of a GPT-4 prompt. We ask the model to write an email subject line for a marketing email, and it writes it. And maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Maybe the company likes it, maybe they don't. But we don't really know. We didn't guide it towards, what we think is good for our store in this instance, or, what a customer thinks is good or anything like that. We just said to write it, and it wrote it. And, there's no real understanding there of our specific company data or anything like that. And it generated it, and it did, maybe good, maybe not. What we would want to see is something that looks a little bit like this. You can see in the system prompt, we've added a little bit of information about what we like email subject lines to look like. So you can see there's a little bit of data there around how to write an offer. There's a couple example emails. There's the product information as well. Very, if you're writing an email subject line, I don't know how you would write that without fully understanding the product you are trying to market. So we include the product data along with that information. And we get something that reads, different from what we saw before. In my opinion, it's a little bit more salesy. It's a little bit more markety. And it sort of reads a little bit better and less generic than what we saw before. Like I said, maybe you would like this one, maybe you wouldn't, maybe the company would, maybe they wouldn't. But this is sort of the idea that, hey, we provide a little bit more context, a little bit more understanding, and we get a result that fits that data a little bit more. And so this would probably go over a little bit better and is something you could iterate on a little bit easier, given that you understand what data is being used to generate this result. So before we dive into this product data generator agent build, I want to go over a couple of things that we need for this, just so you guys have reference to them. All the links will be down below, but do want to sort of go over this so that, it kind of makes sense as we walk through it. So I chose a random e-commerce store to use sort of for this use case. I tried to choose one that had kind of interesting or unique names and descriptions. If you go on Amazon or something like that, Nordstrom, the products are just kind of boring. It'll just say like blue jeans slim or something. That's not a great use case for this. And I didn't really think that would show a lot of the ability of the system to really follow a specific brand or tone or product data type. So I chose this one. I don't know these people or anything like that, but they did have kind of nice naming conventions for their products. as well as, real descriptions that really talk about their brand and the product and everything like that. So I took, a bunch of products from this. I scraped them down into a sort of product database or something like that. It's just a Google sheet that I put together here with, as you can see, just a whole bunch of products in there. Each product has a title, an image description, a description, as well as some of the ones I pulled sort of product specifics and things like that, as well as a price. Now, if you've looked at this site, you'll notice there isn't an image description. So you're probably wondering, where did I get that? What does that have? You see that all of them are sort of this, description of what the product looks like. What I did was I used a model called Blip, which takes images and generates captions for them. So you can see here's the photo, and it generates this caption, whatever we have there, kind of like if you were to look at the product or look at the image, be able to generate a caption for it. The reason I did that is because if you actually look at titles and descriptions of the way that e-commerce stores kind of lay these out, they expect you to have the visual reference of the image to see what the design looks like or see what the color is. Just they know that you're looking at the product. Why would they need to explain in the description or title, hey, this design has this or something like that? For our model, we kind of need that, especially if we're going to provide inputs as images, or we're going to, be able to really kind of like break down what we want our products to look like and what the product looks like for the description and title we want to generate. We kind of need that explanation. So I just used Blip. It's on Hugging Face. I'll link it down below. I just went through their inference API and just uploaded the product image and generated them. If you want to set this up with code, you're more than welcome to. But that's just how I did it. I just ran these through, and for each of the products, generated image descriptions for them. Other than that, the other thing I will note is that if you look at the product data sheet that I have, you'll notice there are no Christmas related products. I left those out on purpose so that we can kind of see how the model performs, the agent performs on new domains or new collections, right? If you think about how this sort of product data generator, assistant, or agent is going to be used, you have your product catalog, and let's say you want to create a new collection or new products or enter into a new domain, you wouldn't already have the products to reference. So it just wouldn't work the same as it would in this test environment unless I leave some sort of set of them isolated and set aside. So you'll notice as we kind of walk through this and dive into it, I've left these out, and I will use this as a test to kind of get a feel for, hey, in a domain the model has never seen, can it follow our understandings of brand and tone and things like that? So other than that, I think that is all we need to set up ahead of time. I have already loaded the file of products into the vector store. Don't think I need to show you guys how to do that. It's very straightforward. As well as the other thing I loaded up, one, I put this very simple one, simple sort of explanation of what we're trying to do here. I did also pull this from their website. I just pulled it down from their About Us page. It's a nice sort of idea of what sort of tone and style our generations come from. You can see fun for all and outrageous apparel and stuff like that. I just pulled this from the website. We're going to use it in the prompt here as we kind of move forward. So let's dive into it. One of the interesting things to talk about with this specific use case is the temperature variable. So temperature controls the randomness that is used for each token in the output. Zero temperature means essentially there's no randomness. Whatever the sort of next best token that is possible is used. No other sort of random ones that might be less probable ever appear. And as you sort of move that on the scale, as you can imagine, that changes. Whereas super high randomness, much more often sort of lower variance, lower frequency tokens are used when we talk about generating in a sequence. So, for a use case like this, temperature is kind of interesting because, in other ones where maybe you're generating math equations or code or stuff like that, things that have like a very defined structure and schema, lower temperature is really the only thing that makes sense. You don't want random characters being generated, random numbers being generated, things like that. In more creative or, sort of, human writing style use cases, higher temperature makes sense. You're trying to invoke more randomness, more variation, more difference. And so that's why you see a lot of use cases like marketing copy, blog writing, things like that. You see higher temperatures. You're trying to get that extra level of variance. For something like this, and we're going to play with a bunch of different ones. I have a feeling that maybe sort of a middle level temperature will work out pretty well. We do still have a little bit of structure that we want, but we do want to invoke some of that creativity with these outputs. We're telling the model through kind of, the products we have and the company statement, things like that. These are different. There's variation. It's outrageous, stuff like that. And so, we do kind of want a little bit of that. So we'll play with it. I mean, it's something where you shouldn't, pick a number and then just be set to it. There's an evaluation process, testing process. So you'll get a feel for that as you move through it. But I think to start out of the gate, we're going to start with 0. We're going to get a feeling for, kind of out of the box. What do we have? What does this look like? With as little variance as possible. See if I can get this to 0. I don't know why it doesn't go to 0. I don't know. We'll leave it at that. It's fine. We kind of want to get a feel for where we are at a base level and then iterate and optimize from there. The one thing to think about is when you are using a higher temperature, that variance shows up in your output. So it's a little bit hard to gauge the model's understanding of the use case because it could have just been a low frequency token or a number was generated that shouldn't have or something like that. That's not a problem of the model's understanding. That's just temperature doing its job. So let's try a couple ones here. We have our products in our vector store. We have our file search on. We have some very basic instructions. You're a product catalog expert. Focus on writing product information for new and existing products. We have the statement. We're going to keep this simple. We're going to see kind of where we're at and then be able to iterate from there. So let's try something like write a new product title and description for the product. Let's try like we have a bunch of Hawaiian shirts. So I kind of want to see with like something where there should be pretty good accuracy, kind of where we're at. So Hawaiian shirt with moons. I don't know. Let's try moons. And we'll run this. Let's see what we get. So we run our retrieval. So we pull some relevant products from our data set into the prompt at runtime. Let's see what we get. Men's lunar luau Hawaiian shirt. I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. A red flag would have been if it just generated something very simple. If it had said like blue Hawaiian moon shirt, where it was just pulling keywords from what we provided and stuff like that. That would have been a little bit of a red flag, but that's kind of cool. It's kind of creative. Description, step into a celestial celebration with the moon, the Hawaiian shirt, out of this world. Button up features, mesmerize. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. Pattern of moons against a vibrant backdrop. Attending a summer party, touch the wardrobe. It's cool. I don't know. It's kind of cool. Care instructions, it even included those. I think we have those. Some of the products I pulled, I gave care instructions, so that's not surprising. Price, I think all the Hawaiian shirts were $49.95, so I'm not surprised that it pulled that price. Don't know why it generated this final line. even with a 0 temperature. That's a little bit interesting. I don't know, but it's kind of cool. Let's try, I want to try something here. Let's bump this temperature up a bit. And now I want to see, grab this. Let's try, I want to see if we can generate like a bunch of different options. So like, let's do something like, write 5 new product titles. I want it only to do titles here because I want to kind of like start at the top, generate a bunch of options, and then for each of the options, we can kind of like generate the rest of the data. So it gives us more variance. Only generate title. And let's see what we get. Let's see how well this works. Men's lunar luau Hawaiian shirt. So we saw that again. We've got Galactic Getaway. I think they're kind of unique. Starry Night. You know, we got a couple different ones. Let's turn this thing up way up. Let's get up towards like 0.82. Let's see what we can get with this. I'm going to clear it because I don't really want anything else to kind of show up there. Let's see. Let's try 10 of them. Let's see what we get. Okay, so we get a couple of the same ones that we saw before, and a couple new ones. I think that's fine. Let's try now with this higher temperature. Let's run through right. Let's generate just another sort of product data outline. Right, new product. Let's see what we get here. Men's moonscape Hawaiian shirt, a little bit different. We get a description: shoot for the moon, land among the Hawaiians. Men's shirt, perfect stargazing, daydreaming alike. Sure, features, memory. Okay, so I mean, it's similar to the one before. It added this little section here at the end. I know none of the products that we scraped from the site have this little perfect for section in them. So this is the temperature kind of doing its job. It decided that, hey, instead of doing an end character here that ends the sequence, we're going to generate a perfect, the token perfect, and then it keeps going from there. So, kind of interesting. We get a little bit here. That's cool. I don't know. I like it. It is, like I said, there are a bunch of Hawaiian shirts in this data set, so I'm not surprised this did pretty well. One thing that is interesting to look at, I'm going to go back to 0 temperature because I kind of want to show how the change in instructions here really changes what we can get with very small changes. That's why isolating your prompts and sort of iterating on specific stuff is so important, because even just a word or two change can really affect the outcome you get here. So here we have our men's lunar luau Hawaiian shirt again. Same one we saw when we had a low temperature before. Very nice. Same sort of description we had before. So now we're going to this time write a. So instead of doing like new, write a new product description, we're going to try to add some language here that throws a little bit more variance in. So let's try spicy. I bet you if you were to map this token and what the most common options are, I'm sure it's the word the letter A, write a product description. Maybe it's write 10 product descriptions. That token is probably, spicy probably isn't very high on that sort of possible option list. So that should throw in a little bit more variance just because our prompt is a little bit different here. So let's see what we get here. Maybe this is different, maybe it's not. I don't know. And let's see what we get. Product description. Okay, so a little bit different this time. We do still get men's lunar luau Hawaiian shirt. Description, we can see we do start to get some terms that are a little bit different. Mentions backyard barbecue and some stuff like that. These looks, did we have a care instructions before? I don't think we did. And I know we definitely didn't have these sections down here in the last run. So you can see how just even a small change in our instructions can give us outputs that have variation in them. And while, that might not look very different to us, we've added new tokens to our sequence. Maybe these tokens are lower, a higher frequency than what we had before. And so we adjust from there. The output changes, we adjust from there. So I think that for these sort of Hawaiian shirt ones, this is not bad. I mean, you can even do things like, let me give me a second here. Where are we? What am I doing? Let's see if we can give it an image and say, hey, create the product data from this image and see what it gets. That's another way that we would want to use this assistant, right? We just got all of our images from, the manufacturer or something like that. Now we need to populate our title and description fields and everything like that. But we just have an image, and manually you have to go through and do that. And then, now we don't have to. So I'm going to try to choose one that I know isn't in the data set, because some of these I, of course, used, and that doesn't show a bunch if I already have it in the data set. Let's see what we get here. Let's pick one we don't have. This one's interesting. Yeah, I don't have this one. So I'm just gonna screenshot it. Go from there. Grab that. Let's see what we want to prompt for when we do this. Based on the image above, generate a product title and description. Our brand style. So let's think about this a little bit here. From what we talked about before with kind of the key pieces of the prompt, we've got our data, right? The image. I mean, we're saying, hey, use this data. We, of course, need to have that. Based on the image above, generate a product title description. There's our instructions, very straightforward of the task we were trying to accomplish. And then I included a little bit of goal state output definition that says, hey, this fits our brand style. We can add to this if we need to, but I'm curious to see just with that little bit of goal state output definition what we get. Remember, there are no images in the product database, just the image descriptions that are in a text format. Men's Santa tropical getaway Hawaiian shirt. Get ready to jingle all the way down to the beach with our men's Santa getaway shirt. This festive button-down features Santa Claus living his best life, lounging in a hammock between palm trees, surrounded by tropical vibes. Perfect for holiday parties, blah, 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 blah. Soft, breathable, machine wash. Okay. Same price from before. The title, I think it's fine. It's different from the one they had. Men's hammock holiday Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, you have Santa in a hammock. The model mentions Santa. The real one doesn't. Once again, this is a scenario where it would sort of be up to the user, the customer, if they think that is similar enough or not, based on whatever their goal state output definition is. Men's Santa tropical getaway shirt. I don't know. I think it's fine. Let's ramp up the temperature, see if we get something maybe a little bit different. I don't know. Let's see what we get. Re-upload this on the provided image. Generate a title, a product title, description that our brand style. And let's see what we get. Men's tropical Santa ham shirt. Transform your holiday season in a beachside paradise with our men's tropical Santa ham Hawaiian shirt. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so a little bit different this time. I actually think I preferred the other one a little bit more. But, you know, that's something you'll see with the temperature. If we ran this again, we'd probably get an output that is different from that. You can see this one didn't include the price. Once again, that's due to the high temperature. It's something that you would either want to prompt for or something like that. And we could do that by doing something like this, where we said, hey, let me grab an example. Product title. We say, hey, you have to have these specific fields every time. That should help quite a bit with it. We go here. Let's call this rules. Always include the following fields when generating new product data. Sorry. Let's say it's product title. Description. I'm going to lowercase that. I don't need it to be capital. Description. Product title description. I'll require price as well. And I think those are the ones I'm going to require because I know some of the products in the database have like a features and care instruction. Some of them don't. So those are the only ones I'm going to require. Cool. So now we've seen kind of how this works with products we already have in the database. You know, we already had a bunch of Hawaiian shirts. So it was kind of nice to see how this looks when using ones you kind of already have. Now I want to run some of the ones we don't have, the Christmas section, and see how those turn out and see what sort of prompt adjustments and optimizations we need to do from there. So now I want to run through creating products in the Christmas niche. As I mentioned before, I didn't pull any products into the product data set from the sort of Christmas catalog, Christmas niche, because I want to see how it performs on new product data. You know, in a real use case, we wouldn't have a backlog of products that are already created if we were trying to create a new catalog or enter into a new niche or something like that. So I want to start with this product. I think it's fine. It is a little bit, the name is kind of generic. So I'm kind of curious how our system with all the, you know, naming and things like that, lots of variation, lots of unique fun names will look with this. But, you know, really just have to compare to it this, which is kind of boring, I guess. So we're going to run that through. I took a screenshot of the photo. We're going to upload the photo here. And then temperature 0. I just want to see at a base level kind of where we're at, the model sort of baseline creativity and ability with what we have here. We're going to use this prompt. I wrote it before. Create a new product based on a provided image. We're starting simple. Just want to get kind of a feel for the base sort of state where our model is at. So let's run it. Create a new product based on the provided image above. Running retrieval. And we get sort of a generic title as well. It's kind of interesting. The original product, of course, has one. You can see men's Christmas tree with beer holsters, ugly Christmas sweater, and men's Christmas beer tree, beer holder sweater. So kind of boring as well. I am curious what the description looked like. See if that was a little bit more fun. You get your hands full playing with Santa. You need Christmas sweater that works overtime for you. Enter a men's sweater, blah, blah, blah. So honestly, kind of boring as well, especially compared to the products we saw before. In this one, we get something a little bit interesting. Get ready to be the life of a holiday party with our men's Christmas tree beer holder sweater. This festive sweater features a vibrant Christmas tree design adorned with colorful pom-poms and snowflakes. So kind of an interesting understanding of what the image actually has. That's kind of unique. As we saw here, it doesn't explain the product's design at all, other than it just says it has the features for the beer holsters and built-in beer. It mentions it here as well. So this is actually pretty good. The title is generic in both, and description here explains the product, mentions the holsters, talks to, has some funny little lines about it and things like that. Price is not the same, but I'm not surprised. $69.95. We don't have any other Christmas sweaters in our database, so I'm not surprised the price is a little bit different. So cool. That looks fine. Let's try it with a little bit higher temperature, see if we can get some variability. We really want to see, we know in our database we don't have products that very semantically align with this one. So temperature is either going to be really good with that, we've given it more room for creativity, or the model is just going to essentially say, hey, we don't have a lot of understanding about this specific niche and what is good for our goal state output. And so maybe it's generic again. We'll kind of see when we get there. We can, of course, go from there. Let me load this back up. Put that in, create a new product. And based on the results we get here, where we know we've added more temperature, we've added more sort of built-in creativity, we should be able to iterate on our prompt instructions, maybe to prompt for that a little bit more. So let's kind of see what we get here. Base prompt, very simple. Maybe we'll get some creativity, maybe we won't. Men's Christmas tree beer holder sweater. So again, kind of a generic one that we get here. Description is very similar, maybe even the same. I don't think it's exactly the same, but it's very similar. It mentions the holsters, mentions pom-poms, mentions tree design, and then the same price we saw before. So now let's look at this and kind of based on what we have here, what changes could we make to a prompt that work a little bit better for creating this new catalog? So let's grab this. Create a new product based on the provided image. Let's try trying to think about what I want to add here that could really try to spice this title up, and see what we get here. I think I'm going to leave this. I think I'm going to leave this alone. I don't really want to change. I think it's fine. It worked really well with our other Hawaiian shirts and things like that. So I don't really want to touch it. Create a new product based on the provided image. We saw this before. We saw spicy was kind of unique. Create a spicy new product based on the provided image. What did they call this collection? Do they have like a name for this? Was it just Christmas? I want to see if they have like a special name. We can say like for our collection, for our whatever. No, they don't really have a. They don't have a name. Our new. Let's see what we get. I don't know. Added a little bit of information about what we're doing in this use case. We're creating a new Christmas collection. Same sort of name, Men's Ultimate Christmas Tree Beer Holder Sweater. Very similar to what we saw before. Description does look different. Describes the product a little bit more. Mentions ugly sweater party, which is kind of nice. That was something that we know this product, wherever it is. We know it mentions in there ugly Christmas sweater. So it is nice that we do get that description. Celebrate the season in style and practicality. Yeah, so I actually like this description a little bit more. It's longer. It's got a little bit more information. It does mention ugly sweater party. Title, still very generic like the one we saw before. I'm surprised it's still generic. Let's see if we ramp this up even more. Maybe we'll get something different. The temperature being super low and then it sort of being this middle level and us getting very similar titles, the model is just very, very set on that being the title because it's been totally willing to change the description, but not as willing to change the title, which is kind of interesting. Let's see what we get here. I'll build this again. So we see a new product based on, I can prompt for a better title, but I don't really want to do that because, if we were generating this over a large data set, if I just really honed in on title, I'm removing a little bit of that data variance. I'm kind of just very focused on one part of the data set. And that's probably going to affect maybe other products that we're generating in the same run. So I try to keep it as generic as possible that works across the entire data set. Granted, we don't have a full data set here, but you can kind of see that like if I make this prompt uber specific to this product, it's not going to work as well as the other products. Let's run this. Surprised the titles are super generic. I really am. I don't know. Maybe it's just kind of the way it is with this specific product. I can't find it now. What was this product called? I can't even find it. Sorry, I wanted to pull it up and look at it again. What is this thing called? This is it. Okay. Men's Christmas tree beer holder sweater. Man, it loves that. Price and product attributes. Once again, love the description. They all kind of follow the same theme where it kind of explains what the product looks like, talks a little bit about, ugly Christmas sweater, and then kind of talks about, this festive wonder not only sports a jolly Christmas tree, it talks a little bit about the product. So this is kind of the same. That's kind of interesting. What I want to do is I want to run another one through and see if we get that same level of sort of generic titles, because now we can start to see a pattern. If we see that, we can see that, the model in its current setup defaults to very generic titles when we don't have, a bunch of examples and things like that in our product data set. So let's find another one, maybe another sweater. I want to find one with like a cool title. None of these really have. The titles just kind of explain the product. This is going to be, I don't know. We'll try this. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. Title is kind of boring. We'll see what. We'll try the same prompt. Pull this up. And let's see what we get. What was this called? Garland Ugly Christmas Sweater. Very generic name. Very, very generic. Oh, interesting. Tinsel Tangle. I kind of like that. I like that. I like this variation from the original product way more than I liked it with the one before. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe just that specific product, just wasn't as interesting. I don't know. We'd have to run a deeper analysis on that specific one, but this is kind of interesting. Tinsel Tangle. I kind of like that. Square Dick the Halls and yourself. That's a nice reference point to the fact that you are wearing the tinsel for anybody that couldn't figure that out. Get ready to deck the halls and yourself. Crystal sweater. This outrageous green sweater is adorned with festive tingle garlands and colorful ornaments. I mean, I really like that. I'll zoom in on it for people that want to see it a little bit closer. I kind of like that. I really like that for a 0 temperature result point. 02. I really like that. I want to run it again, but bump the temperature up. Let's see what we get with a little bit higher. Make sure we're good. Is there anything else worth noting in here? Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah, look at that. Now we're talking. Men's tinsel and baubles. I'm gonna get that. Somebody's gonna kill me in the comments for that. Christmas sweater. Step aside Christmas. This one I love. This one I absolutely love. I think this is the best. This is the best generation so far, in my opinion. Really quirky, creative title. Description's still great. All the descriptions so far, I think, have been really good. Price, once again, like I mentioned, unless we have that sort of outlined in the data set, not really going to be able to figure that one out. But title and description look great. Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. I'll run one more, and then I want to do some optimizations and iterations and do a little bit of data comparison. So let's see if we can find another one. Oh, wait, no, I like that one. Where was that? If it gets this right, this can be pretty sweet. This one I think is a little bit more confusing. We'll see what we get. I'm gonna grab this. I really like this prompt. It's been working well. Upload image. Let's see what it gets. I don't know if it's gonna recognize that that's supposed to be baby Jesus. I don't know. We'll see. As usual, we're gonna start at 0. Let's see what we get. Baby Jesus carrier Christmas sweater. What did they call it? Sweet baby Jesus, ugly Christmas sweater. It's pretty. It's close. Description. Let's look at the description. Celebrate the holiday season. Description looks fine. It's a little generic. I think the title's a little generic as well. Let's bump this up. Run this again. Let's go somewhere in the 70s. And let's run this again. I would like to see if we can get another title that's creative. Men's baby Jesus Christmas sweater. Again, generic. Descriptions still look really good. Celebrate Christmas spirit, twist of humor. Men's baby Jesus Christmas sweater. Yeah, I mean it's not as good as I think the one before. I think it's fine. It's just sort of descriptive of what's there. Let me try. I'm gonna leave this, and just like you would with like a chatbot where you can put in another step to kind of like iterate on your results. Let's see what that looks like. Wow, that spelling is rough. And that looks sweet. That's a great title. So that's kind of interesting. That makes me want to change the instructions to really hone in on the creativity, really hone in on the experimentation with word sequences and things like that, because all it took was that, and that's great. That's a great title. Hilarity this holiday season, great reference. Zesty green sweater feature. I think it's great. I really do. That's interesting that line here is all it took to really add a different level of creativity in my mind to this product. I think if you wanted to use this assistant as just sort of a one-time run where you just upload a data set of products, you run through them all, and you get your titles and descriptions out, that instructions, that instruction would need to be updated a little bit. If you wanted to use this like a chatbot, kind of like this, then I think that's really good. I think that's perfectly fine. I'm gonna run through one more, and I'm gonna see if we can update the instruction set a bit, just to see if we get something new that is unique. Any of these any good? I don't really love that. You got to have the light up to really run that through. That's kind of annoying because I actually think that one would have been pretty good. Let's try this one. Very, very, very boring title. Maybe we can update this. See if we get something better with our version. So it's clear. Upload. Maybe it's that simple. I don't know. Maybe that's all we need. Very, very boring title. Lots of things you could do with this name as well. Description's pretty good. Yeah, it's okay. It's actually okay. I don't like it like the other ones. Rudolph's Wild Ride onesie. That's an interesting title choice by OpenAI. I like it. It's quirky, it's unique, it's different. Slay the holiday season with Rudolph. Yeah, and look at that use of sleigh. I mean, that's just great. That is a great use of that. The model's understanding of that sort of quirky word choice is awesome. Officially licensed, that's kind of interesting that it mentioned it there. It didn't mention it here. I know it mentioned it in the image, but they don't ever mention it in the description. Maybe they mention the details. No, they don't. So that's kind of nice that they were able to sort of work that in. Conic antlers, light up the root. Look at that. Look at that use of, figuratively, of course. That's awesome. I like this description the most by far. I really do. I think this is the best one I've seen so far. Cool. Yeah, I think this looks really good. Trying to see if I want to run anything else on that or jump over to, I'm going to jump over the data analysis and we'll talk a little bit about the results. So the last thing I want to go over is some of the data analysis we can do to evaluate our product data generating assistant. These are some pretty common techniques that we use to understand if our newly generated products are good compared to a couple benchmarks that we can sort of quantify and evaluate. So this code is available. It's on GitHub. A couple of things. I'm going to show you the results first and kind of talk about them, so you kind of get what I'm referring to as we kind of go through it. So one of the main tools we're using is a thing called t-SNE. t-SNE kind of allows us to take two different natural language data sets and evaluate them for similarity. And you can use that in kind of two different ways. Some use cases, you might want them to be very similar. Like let's say you had like 500 real products and you're generating 100 new ones in the same category or collection. You would want those new ones to be very semantically similar to the ones you've already created. I mean, that kind of makes sense. You're trying to get them to sort of align with the products that you already have that you know are good, kind of like a golden data set. So in that instance, you would want to see, here's sort of a visual of what this looks like. I took this from one of the research papers that uses it in this format. This is just an image of it. But you have all these sort of data points here, and you have the original data set, and then you have sort of the new one that's generated, and you would want to see that they overlap. You'd want to see that they cluster, the blue and the orangish red ones overlap quite a little bit. Maybe you have some sort of clusters here around the blue ones. That's kind of what you want to look for if you were evaluating this to try to get them to be as similar as possible. If you were generating this to be as unique as possible, maybe you have 500 products that you don't like the data and you generate new versions of those and you want them to be diverse and different, and maybe like we saw longer, new keywords, new terms, things like that. Maybe if you had another one where like this one where you have a original data set and you want to generate synthetic data, if you're doing like model fine tuning, you would want those to be different and unique because you're trying to cover more data variants. Your goal of your evaluation is different. Then you would want to see that, like in this example, which came from a synthetic data set generation use case, that, the synthetic data points are more spread out compared to the blue ones. The blue ones, very semantically similar, very clustered up. And the other ones sort of fill in the gaps and are a little bit more broad, creating more sample diversity in your data set. So this is kind of a nice view of what t-SNE looks like with a rather large data set. Of course, our data set isn't as large for this example, so it doesn't look, in my opinion, as nice. But that's kind of the way you'd want to use it at scale for kind of comparing one product data set to another based on what you're trying to get out of it. Are you trying to quantify that these are close, or are you trying to quantify that these are different, just based on what you're trying to do with the use case? These are our graphs. I think I used 10 products. The collection, the Christmas collection, isn't very large. So I think I used 10 and was able to graph it. The original products in the store versus the generated ones, trying to see how much sort of diversity we have in the data set. And we can zoom this graph out a little bit to make it look a little bit nicer. I also did the titles as well. I was very curious to see how the titles alone looked when you sort of graph them out and then compare them for similarity, and just kind of wanted to see, what we get out of that there when we graph these together, like the above that we saw. Now, the other thing I did, because this graph at our smaller data set level, isn't as great. I wanted to see, when you compare the original to the generated, kind of those pairs, what does our similarity look like at sort of a pair-to-pair level? This, of course, is the entire data set with t-SNE. What does it look like on kind of a pair-to-pair level? So I went through and I wrote some code to take the original title and the original description and compare it to the generated title and the generated description. And then I just ran a simple semantic similarity on those. and was able to kind of get those values out. Honestly, these are very high. You got to be pretty used to the SBERT model to know like what sort of similarity values are very similar, which ones aren't. These are actually pretty good. Anything above 80% with a model that is that general. This is not a product specific similarity model or even like a fashion specific similarity model. This is just general, trained on all different types of data and things like that. So these are actually fairly similar. We can see we got 72%, 73, 80, 78, 86, 81, 64, 75, 79, and 70. So pretty good similarity. These were actually pretty well mapped. I think the only one that's kind of low is the 64, and I can't remember which one this was. You can see the titles are very different. And I actually really like the generated one more. The tinsel tangle one. I like that title more than I like this kind of gaudy garland. Like, I just think that's kind of generic. It's not kind of like catchy or spicy or whatever we used. So I actually do like that one a little bit more. But that's what we get out from there. Now, the one piece of code I have here as well, which I didn't run in this sort of example, but I did run it before because I wanted to check these out, is I wrote a simple prompt with ChatGPT to just ask it if ChatGPT thinks that the original product and the generated one are the same product. So I just compared those, said, hey, do you think these are the same? Trying to get it to compare them for similarity, kind of like a product data matcher or something like that. There's a lot of tools out there that do that. I just use a simple ChatGPT one. So that code is available as well for anybody that wants to do it. So let's take a look at the code itself. We have this. This was just me displaying that image. I just wanted to show you like t-SNE at scale, kind of what that looks like when you take like a large data set and kind of compare them. I wanted to just show that example. Here we're doing some data set operations to just pull this into one field of title and description. And then I split those up into the two different data frames for the titles and the combined data so that we could plot both of those. I have a function here to plot t-SNE. Straightforward. I used TF-IDF for the actual model. You could maybe use something else here. You could use SBERT as well. I think SBERT would actually maybe work a little bit better. I don't know, with such a small data set, I honestly think they're going to be pretty close at scale. Maybe I'd use SBERT instead for this. Some stuff here I had to do because the minimum size for the t-SNE is 30 records. So I only had 10, so I had to sort of reset that. We run it. We set a random state. We have our components. We have two. And then we just plot it there. That's the plot code we have there. And then this is just me calling the function and going from there. The SBERT model, I just used one of the base models. Like I said, this isn't a product data specific model or anything like that. And then I just have a function to compute the similarity, or we just encode them, turning them into embedded vectors and compute them and return a data frame that has those computations. Display one, once again, I just take that data frame and I just display it with one of the other functions there. This is just running those functions that we saw. You'll have to replace this with your actual data set. I just have the CSV here, run it through. Very straightforward in that regard. And then, of course, the code to compare. So yeah, this looks pretty good. I like the similarity at such a small data set. I like the sort of row comparison more than I like t-SNE. Although if you're going to be doing this at like a larger scale, I think this visualization of your data set's sort of semantic difference and similarity is much more relevant. Like I said, if you have 500 products or something like that, and you're generating 100 new ones, or you're taking products and sort of trying to rewrite them into a better format that follows maybe like brand or tones or things like that. I like the t-SNE graphing a little bit more. I think it shows sort of the data variance and sample diversity or lack thereof much better. But both of these are tools you can use in your toolbox to go from there. I think when I would build this in a production setting, I would start with just graphing Esper because it's very easy to see when you have little products, just the row similarity. And then once you sort of scale that up and you feel good about the prompt that you've built and the tool you've built and everything like that, then you can kind of do this broader comparison of all of the data compared against, the newly generated stuff. So let me know if you have any questions about this, if there's anything to add. This is all open source in our GitHub. I have the link down below for it. So if anybody wants to add anything or push any commits to it or anything like that, of course, feel free to open those pull requests, and be able to go from there. I believe all the links to the data and the store and everything like that are in the GitHub as well. So you should be able to get access to that, as well as access to the assistant that we put together. Feel free to add to it, maybe add some new tooling or anything like that you think is relevant. But this is a fairly straightforward demo of how you can build a fairly powerful assistant. This is probably one of the easier prompts I've put together in a long time. Live coded as you've already seen. This was a fairly straightforward one to put together and actually worked really well. I was very impressed on sort of the newer domains that we tested, the Christmas one, some of the new Hawaiian products and things like that. I was very happy with the results we got. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions about it, and put this all out, and hope you enjoyed. Hope you got a lot of knowledge about building something like this. Hope it was very straightforward as well. And I will see you guys later.